Well, yeah, I was like a super depressed kid, like super depressed, like to like a very dark degree. Like I thought I was like very much counting days to like if I'm not happy by the time I'm 18, that's it. Like I'm out, you know, like very very dark. And then it was like StarCraft 2 was on the horizon. I thought, I'll give it a go, see if this change, and it really did change everything. Like in my head, I didn't want to do school. I hated school. I wasn't bad at school. I just loathed it. Like my whole life was just games, games, games. Like my childhood situation wasn't good. Just yeah, it was the greatest escape possible. And then as soon as I could.
Hey, SE Historian here. Today I have a piece for you all with one of the most old school names in StarCraft, DeMu. From his early days playing Warcraft 3, the ups and downs of playing for evil geniuses, rising up in the Age of Empires scene, and so much more, Ben and I covered a lot. If you like what I do here, get subscribed so you don't miss out on future releases like this. If you really enjoy what I do here, consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the video description. With that said, let's jump in to my word with DeMu.
So, DeMu, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, mate.
So, I think my customary question has become, how'd you get into RTS?
I got into RTS a long, long time ago. Like when I was young, my dad would play games like Age of Empires 1, Populous, Command & Conquer, and I started playing them very, very early on. Like I was, let's say, 7, 8. And I remember one of my friends at school, I made friends with a few guys, and we all liked video games. I remember like Pokemon was a big craze on Game Boys on the playground. And one kid who was especially nerdy, he was like, hey, you want to come over to my house and play StarCraft? I've got it set up on Spawn. So he had like 2 computers. But I'd say that was like the start of me getting into RTS. And the first RTS that I truly, really played a lot was Warcraft 3.
Yeah, that's definitely something, you know, that I think is, you know, part of like the identity of you, right? Like, you know, this sort of start in Warcraft 3. You know, what made you end up being so dedicated to that title?
I just found it a lot of fun. Like, I mainly played team games. There'd be this thing in Warcraft 3 where you'd play solo, you'd play a certain amount of games, and then you'd start off with like 0 MMR basically, and everybody would see how many wins they could get without losing, and then you'd make a new account when you lost too much and it didn't look good. So I did that a little bit, but I was a bit scared of 1v1. You know, it was very, very intimidating.
Sure.
But back then when you joined BNet, you used to go to your national channel. So for me, it was like GBR/1. And one thing that happened was one of my friends that I made was like, hey, Ben, there's this tournament going on. Would you like to take part? And I was like, oh, no, I'm not in. He's like, oh, no, you're really good. It's only British people. And I was like, oh, okay, then I'll give it a go. So it was an online tournament. And at this point, I had no idea about esports. I just thought it was a fun tournament.
Yeah.
And I ended up making it to the final. And I played against a guy called Pure Ball, who at this time, I didn't know he was a pro gamer, but I had no idea. And I beat him on the first game. It was top 2 qualify, didn't know what for. And then he forfeited because he was like, you know, we're qualified, I don't need this. And I was like, what qualify what for? And it's like, oh yeah, go to London to play in a tournament. And I was like, what? And that's when I got shown pictures of, I think it was FOV back then, like winning ESWC 2004 or something. And he had like a $10,000 check. And I was like, you can make money.
Yeah.
And like this whole thing like blew me away mentally. And I remember going down to this tournament, playing my first match against a guy called Bond, who at this point I was like 15 and he was maybe about 30, so double my age. And he had like this leather jacket, looked like he was out of the Matrix. And I remember him like kind of shit talking me a bit. Like he was like, first land, feel the nerves, huh? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And I ended up playing my game. I got absolutely smoked 2-0. And the friend that said I should play in this tournament in the first place, he was called Machiavelli. That was his nickname. He was called Omar Qureshi. He was like, hey, Ben, you look really uncomfortable. Like, you know, normally you smoke everybody online. And I was like, yeah, the desks are really kind of bad, actually. He's like, oh, like too high, too low? I'm like, no, it's the desk cloth. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, look. And I showed him my mouse. And at this point, people started using like optical and lasers and stuff.
You had a rollerball?
You what, sorry?
You had a rollerball?
I had a rollerball mouse, and like I didn't use a mouse pad either. Like back at home, I just used my wooden desk, and so like my desk was literally like this with creases. And he's like, "Oh my god, okay, do you want to use my gear?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So he let me borrow all his gear. I went through the lower bracket, got to play Bond again in the final, and I beat him 4-0. So I won my trip to Singapore, which my family was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." So yeah, that's how I initially got into it.
That's pretty insane. One thing you mentioned was your original sort of connection to some of this stuff was through your dad. You said he played some RTS titles.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty, somewhat unique for like a slightly like previous generation age demographic when it comes to like pro gaming. People are in the scene, right? Because you see this with people like, let's say, Clem. I think it's a bit more normal because the people that grew up playing games are now the parents of those people.
Like quite a few of my friends were into games for sure, and you'd be a PlayStation guy or an N64 guy or
Yeah.
Final Fantasy guy or a Zelda guy, but not anything to the same degree that I was into it.
Sure.
I didn't really tell any of my friends how deep I was in Warcraft. Like I used to take time off school and I didn't tell them why. Like I was just off and I said I was ill or something, and it got to a point where like my head of year called up at home and was like, "Ben's skiving," basically, and my mum was like, "He's not skiving, he's representing the UK right now." But I just didn't tell the school. I was very embarrassed about how nerdy I was, and I mean, I'm so happy that stereotypes changed. But yeah, I was mortified. So I didn't really get to connect with anybody on that level to know that much about it,
Yeah, no, that's definitely a big cultural shift in that sense, where I think, over the last decade or maybe a bit more, nerd culture has sort of become a bit into vogue. Is, especially when it comes to pro gaming, is, all celebrities now in some senses. So, when it comes to StarCraft, though, so from winning, Home Story Cup 1 in 2010 to casting Katowice in 2024, what do you think has kept you so engaged with the StarCraft community?
I guess it's a tough one to say because obviously I was a competitor for a long time, but also during my competitive career I did a lot of casting and things like that, which like my first event casting, I did a show match between Madfrong and TLO, which was like during the beta, and I did DreamHack Stockholm with Apollo as the co-caster and Too Good as the host. So I've always been ingrained in the talking about it. All my friends, all my life is literally online stuff, like literally all of it. I don't do anything besides games. I think it's just wedged in me at this point. Like, if you were to say like StarCraft wasn't a thing for me tomorrow, it would just leave a massive void in my life and things that I do. Like, obviously I stream a lot of Age of Empires these days, but it's really hard for me to, because esports and gaming in itself is obviously growing a lot, but it's hard for me to say what it's like. It's like, say you have a tennis player that's very into football as well, and it's like, even though he's a pro tennis player, loves watching football and can maybe talk a lot about it, knows all the players on the teams, he's actually friends, those are his social circles, and his job is the tennis. So it's not so much like, so yeah, for me, a lot of my job was StarCraft 2, playing it. It got so stressful for me playing it to a point where I knew I couldn't keep up, and it really, almost like PTSD levels.
Wow.
And I love the competitiveness, like I love competing, and I love to see these guys that I know are way better than I was compete at something that I still very much love.
Yeah.
But talking about like why I'm still here, I just still really love it, and I know that I pretty much owe everything that I am to this day to StarCraft 2, and yeah, you can't remove that.
It's crazy how impactful these things become when, originally it's just you're playing it, oh, this is a fun game, and then it sort of develops into your life. It's
Well, yeah, I was like a super depressed kid, like super depressed, like to like a very dark degree. Like I thought I was like very much counting days to like if I'm not happy by the time I'm 18, that's it. Like I'm out, like very, very dark. And then it was like StarCraft 2 was on the horizon. I thought, I'll give it a go, see if this change, and it really did change everything. Like in my head, I didn't want to do school. I hated school. I wasn't bad at school. I just loathed it. Like my whole life was just games, games, games. Like my childhood situation wasn't good. It was the greatest escape possible. And then as soon as I could, I just moved to Germany. Like I think I just turned 20 when I moved to Germany on like a 400 euro salary, like paying for apartment and stuff. Where I had to rely on winnings. But as soon as I got the chance, I just did it. And yeah, never looked back.
So, if you turn back the clock to, let's say, the 2013-14 era, there was a lot of doom and gloom in the community, despite the fact that it was very robust still. But, I think there was a lot of negativity because of the rise of some other titles that ended up surpassing StarCraft 2. Did you think that StarCraft 2 was going to have the type of longevity that it has proved to have?
Always hoped. And I know, like, people have criticized Blizzard in recent history for how they've done things, but I was always very sad about how Blizzard handled StarCraft even back in like 2012. Like there's even interviews to this day where like Riot wasn't as big, but you could tell, like I compared it to you got dudes in medieval armor, that's Blizzard, with their swords and stuff. Then you got these new kids on the block with lightsabers and doing everything way better. I always hoped that it was going to stay around because it's really good, and it's honestly, to me, the players that play StarCraft 2, like when you see the first person views, it's just like that's one of the hardest things you can ever do. And I wanted to really kind of get that across and the people that loved it. But yeah, I didn't quite expect it to stay around. I just hoped it did.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people didn't necessarily, think that we would have this type of, longevity, and it's fascinating how things have played out. But moving on to like your time with EG, I think most people would refer to the time period that you were with them as like kind of the heyday of the organization, at least in terms of like public perception. What was it like to be a member of that squad?
I have very fond memories. Overall, is the one thing I can say. Like I remember when they reached out to me, EG, and I was on a team called MTW at the time. And they offered me a salary that was like, I think the initial offer was like $13.50 a month, which was more than 3 times I was getting from my current team. It was great. I remember talking to my current team, MTW at the time, and I was like, I'd really like to go. And they're like, yeah, sure, just finish the season for us. And I was like, okay, finish the season. And then they're like, okay, to leave, you need to pay us 10,000 euros. And it was just like, it was a mess. Like the whole thing was a mess. They weren't paying salary at the time either. Like missing 3 months, but eventually got to join EG, and at that point it was just like, oh my god, like doors are opening, this thing's getting bigger and bigger, and like this is kind of real. I can make this a thing for now. And even though people can look at that and be like, oh, it's not the most money, there was money from different avenues as well, and I tried to make the most of all of it. But yeah, when I got to America and where I lived with EG, yeah, that was amazing, man. That was absolutely fantastic. Made a lot of really good friends. And despite what people think, like me and IdrA actually got on very well. Got on very well with Jeff, Machine. It was just, yeah, a really, really happy time in my life.
Is there anything that stands out to you as the most memorable part of living in that house?
The most memorable? I mean, just like, I'd wake up, and no matter what time I woke up, I'd go to the gaming room and people are there. And it just made, for me, it made StarCraft 2, which is, let's be real, a lonely experience. It wasn't lonely anymore. And it was also something that I shied away from for so long, telling people what I do. And now it's like totally different. It's like people want to know what you do. They like, my passion was something that people looked at and they weren't disgusted by it, which was just, yeah, it was a lot of personal growing for me, and I started to become proud of what I did as opposed to ashamed.
Yeah, it's amazing to go from something that you're hiding to now something that people love you for, and they want to know more about you, and yeah, it's a must have been a very strange transition. So, the public perception of EG has changed. Most people, I think, would argue for the worse in recent times. Where do you think that organization went wrong?
So I know quite a bit about what went on. We were getting acquired by Twitch at the time, and as far as I know, they really wanted Alex Garfield to be an employee for Twitch, and he was promised a lot of stuff by Twitch, and I don't want to necessarily say stuff that I don't know too much about, but sure. He was basically, as soon as EG was acquired, he was very much taken away from EG to do, I think, sales stuff for Twitch. And as soon as I feel that Alex Garfield stepped away, we had far more, could you say, corporate people step in that were not so much about you loving what you do. It was about like numbers. And I know that when me, Stefano, and Thorzane were on the teams especially, when this happened, it was like night and day how we were treated. Because from it being on the outside, like, oh, nice rich team, players, most of us were very unhappy on EG. Just, I was flying to events on my own money, just because when you talk to EG, they literally would ghost you. I remember, going to multiple events, and it's like, I've booked a hotel room, or EG would say they booked a hotel room, none of the sort, they didn't even contact. It was absolutely broken on the inside, but the perception was it's all great and rosy. But that for me is where things started to look very south.
It sounds so counterintuitive because they became part of this larger organization with so many resources, but then weren't able to deliver as much. It's so strange. Like, now that you described it, it makes sense. But yeah, I do think the public perception was that things were still on the up and up at that time.
I know people memed about this EG curse thing back then, which was like players that join EG, they get worse.
Yeah.
But you sign these nice contracts, to be looked after, and then very quickly, and I mean, for a long time it was great on EG. Like the first 2 years, fantastic, maybe 3 years. But as soon as that happened, things went south, and it was like mundane stuff as well. Like I remember when I moved away from America, because again, the new corp, they promised to get me a visa and to stay in America. Absolutely didn't happen, even though they were telling me they were working on it. Turns out not at all. So again, it was just like, it was disappointment after disappointment, right? And I'd be in Europe and it's like, okay, my headset's broke. And I was like, oh, can I get a new one? And I'd had this headset for 3 years. It wasn't as if it was just stopped working. And they're like, no, we can't get you one. And it's like, okay, but we have like Astro as a sponsor. And it's like, yeah, you have to buy it. And I'm like, well, what do I do in the meantime? Like, it's an American thing. They're like, well, you can't wear anything else. And I'm like, can I have in-ears under? And they're like, no. So it was literally trying to force you into a position where it's like, you have to play without sound, for example, just cause. And I remember at some point, like, Astro tweeted a headset, a new pink headset. Like, I remember this so vividly. And I was in Sweden at the time, living at the Too Good house. And I remember, like, they did a picture, and I was like, oh, it looks great. Like, when do I get one, kind of thing. Like, just a nice tweet. They retweeted it, liked it. They messaged me privately. They're like, yeah, we can get you that, no worries. And I got a message from my then team manager, very angry email that was like, Ben, you're getting fined $500 for this. And it was just like, what? It's like, you are never allowed to message sponsors ever. And I was just blown away. And I remember, like, right there and then I was like, I went and messaged Alex and I had a call with him and I was like, mate, this is out of control. Like, this is, and he's like, Ben, I'm so sorry. I actually can't do anything. And it was just really sad. And that's when I started to like really feel that, they stopped caring entirely.
That's insane. Yeah, it's hard to even wrap my mind around some of that. It sounds like it's just such weird business practices. That's a hard thing to understand.
Well, it was not. It doesn't and still doesn't make sense in any sort of way. Like me, Stefano, and Thorzane especially were having to like fund our own stuff. We still heard about like the American squad, like Xenocider, getting like a new PC and stuff. So it was like really pushing on the Europeans out. But like Thorzane kind of retired very silently. Stefano very much stepped back, and yeah, I felt I got pushed out. And when this was happening, I'm like, guys, my contract's up, and I don't want to stay. I really don't. And they refused to do like a leaving thing, like refused to announce that I was leaving. So I remember back then I did my own Facebook post and just said like, hey, I had a great time, because I also didn't want to leave with tarnishing the name, just because I really liked Alex and I really liked EG. But it was also very bitter, because it was like, mate, the people that are there right now, they are awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to hear, because I don't think I've ever heard really anything like this publicly about the team from that era anyway. And I think it is very perspective shifting, because, you know, I think generally, at least my perception is that these issues with the company are kind of from the last few years, but that's going back a long time then.
Yeah, it's like probably 2014-ish, I would hazard a guess. And I mean, I know EG's had a lot of bad stuff now, to the point of like basically disbanding, right? So I don't feel too bad about exposing from a long time ago. And some of the stuff that they've done these days, obviously not good either. But yeah, I think that's when it officially went downhill in my eyes. And yeah, they couldn't get things back on track without Alex. It really couldn't.
So shifting gears and kind of looking at your pro gaming career in its entirety, is there a particular player that you took a game or a series off of that just meant a lot to you in the moment?
Yeah, Nesty. Nesty was absolutely a massive breakthrough for me. I like went to America to play. I was living there for a while, and then I was in this massive limbo. Like I wasn't allowed to partake in the European qualifiers because I didn't live there, and I wasn't allowed to partake in the American qualifiers either because I wasn't a resident or wasn't a citizen.
Yeah.
So it was like, what can I do? And the rules were very like, as far as I'm aware, weren't based on anything lore-ish. It was just kind of done. And for that tournament in particular, I think it was an MOG Arena Winter or something along those lines. And a player dropped out. His name was Artist back then. And they ran a little qualifier where it was like, Ben, okay, you can partake. And I ended up taking the spot. So I went in as the bottom seed. And yeah, first round Nesty. And it was like, well, shit, I'm against like the best player in the world. And I remember I ended up beating him 2-1. And it was, for me at the time, like one of the most epic games I played. Like I was so dead, and I ended up winning. And it was just like, oh my goodness. And the rest of the tournament, I think I lost like 1-2 to Oz, beat HeyPro 2-0, beat Grubby, and then I lost to Violet. Violet was definitely a kryptonite for me. But yeah, that was definitely like quite a breakthrough. Like even though I won some tournaments, that felt real good, real good.
Yeah, when you talk about the rules and stipulations around, they seemed very arbitrary. It seemed like they were crafted very specifically to limit the Koreans from, dominating so many regions. And then it seems like ultimately a lot of the Koreans were able to get the visas they needed to kind of do that anyway. So yeah, it was a strange structure for sure.
Well, the thing that didn't make sense was like a lot of the Koreans that participated, like this is later on, years after, like many years after, what would it be, like 2013, 14-ish? Like a lot of them that made it worse was they'd still be in Korea, living there, while partaking in European and NA events.
Yeah.
And I have nothing about them, nothing wrong about like, hey, you're partaking in this event, but you don't live here. And again, that sounds kind of bad by me, but it's like,
I understand.
If you compete in that circuit, the NA circuit, it's nice if you play on the NA. And that was something that I like truly embraced. It was like, boom, yeah, NA ladder, EU ladder at the same time. Like I'll practice with everything I can, but I'm sort of boosting the scene as well by being there. But yeah, different story altogether.
Yeah, it always felt like there was an element of skirting the rules like for example, I remember when Jaedong had to hit that certain number of games on the ladder for some season of WCS America, and he went on like a 74-0 tear or something on the NA ladder. But so that just kind of stands out, as a memory. But yeah, it must have felt weird as a competitor to. Yeah, it's a little off-putting, I think, to feel like that. I mean, farming is a very aggressive word, but kind of, and beyond that also, not, like what you said, not helping boost the scene, not helping raise the skill level by, giving the Americans really high level players to play against and practice against. So yeah, I can imagine that not feeling the best. So how'd you end up making the transition from pro gaming to commentary?
I did quite a bit of commentary when I was pro gaming, and it kind of worked out that if I didn't qualify to an event, I would love to cast it. And it even started getting to the point where playing was very stressful, and going to an event to not finish, because back then it was like a lot of top 3, top 4 get paid. At one point, top 1 gets paid. But it was brutal. Like, it was super brutal. Like, I'm so happy with the payment system changing for young players. Because I remember getting like top 8 in an NASL, maybe 1 or 2 seasons, but it was like 0 prize money for top 8, even though you've gone 7-1 in a group or something with really good players.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you didn't win anything, but top 4 was 5K. And it's like, it was just very, very cutthroat, like very cutthroat. And when it was you spending a week of your life to go somewhere to then walk away with absolutely nothing or less, and it was just, it was very tricky. And going to events to talk about something that you really like and getting to just kind of share, and then you get to also talk about these people that you play all the time and what they're good at, what they hate, what they've done, how they've warmed up for this. That filled a different itch. Like, it definitely scratched a different itch. And to this day, I still really like doing that. And if I can ever talk about why players are doing certain things, because there's one thing I loathed with commentary up until that point was criticism, but it being incorrect criticism. Like, a player does something, let's say a player gets behind, like super simple example. Player gets behind, they are often put in a position where they have to do something crazy, and a lot of commentators could look at that and just be like, oh, that's such a bad move, why did he do that? And it's like, he had to do something like that. And I like to lay that down so viewers understand. Granted, players can be dumb, as can anybody, and there are, you get hero with a few of these blinks and stuff, but I like to make that clear, like when somebody's put in those kind of positions, and I felt that not a lot of people were doing that back then.
Yeah, commentary has definitely come a long way, from the old days for sure. Shifting gears again into your time more recently with Age of Empires, how'd you end up getting involved so heavily with AoE 4? Super
shock to me that I did. I knew Age of Empires 4 was on the horizon, and I was very happy doing StarCraft. And when I say doing StarCraft, I like stream StarCraft all the time, and it was at a point where I could maybe take some games off pro players here and there, compete in some weeklies, have some fun. I still found it very stressful to play, and I could only stream for like 4 hours at a time just because I got very big headaches. Like, I didn't realize it was associated with StarCraft. And people were playing in the AoE 4 beta and saying like, oh, this is terrible, like this bell that rings all the time, like, and I was like, ugh, sounds shit. Like, anyway, you talk with StarCraft players at events about it because they all tried it. But when the game came out, I was like, you know what, I'll do like a bronze to GM thing from like a Blizzard perspective, because for me, I still follow like a bit of Warcraft 3 as well. Like, I follow a lot of esports actually, like it's ridiculous, but I was just like, yeah, I'll do a bronze to GM kind of series as somebody that's not touched Age of Empires since I was 9, and see how it goes and talk from it from a Blizz guy's perspective. And I thought that would be interesting, just because I thought I would get high, but not necessarily the best.
Yeah.
And so I started playing it, and I was just having a lot of fun. Like, it was no longer like the stress of perfection, which you strive for in StarCraft 2, and the older you get, the less it's perfect, and then the more frustrating it is. In AoE 4, it's a lot of just learning and playing, and it just felt so fun to do that again. And as time went by, like I would follow StarCraft 2. Like that would still be my main thing. I'd still stream a bit of StarCraft 2, but I was really enjoying AoE 4 and I saw it growing. I also started playing pros in that game, which I was like, oh, this guy, I saw him in this tournament in AoE 4. That was so cool. And I'd win and I'd be like, oh, what? Like I kind of saw myself this happy-go-lucky guy that was doing well. But then eventually, like, I remember one of the dream hacks where AoE 4 had been out for a couple of weeks, and like I was talking with the Zombie Grub about it. Like she was playing Abbasid, and I was like, I'm an English main, obviously, and you know we played like one civ, and then a couple of weeks went by, and there was this new tournament announced that was like a Steel Series Cup, for 20k, and it was a weekend thing. It was it was quite a lot of money for a weekend thing. I ended up playing in it. I got matched with Marine Lord, or I got far. I like survived the first day, which was amazing. I didn't expect it again. Played a very good player in the round of 16. Then I got Marine Lord, that StarCraft players know, in the round of 8. And he shit talks me profusely, you know. Like, and I do the same, to be fair, but he deserves it. I ended up beating him, which was massive for me. Then I beat another guy that's an Age of Empires 3 pro, or he's played other games as well.
Viper?
No, it's a guy called I'm Magic,
okay,
Canadian. And then I played Vortex in the final. And the funny thing about that is I competed against Vortex in 3 different titles now, like Warcraft 3, 15 years ago. StarCraft 2, obviously, is Team Liquid, and he was really good. And then we got to play in the final of this tournament, so it just felt also like nostalgic, but also like, oh my God, am I competing for real again? Like I retired in StarCraft 2 back in like 2018 officially, and I ended up winning. And it was the most surprising thing of my life to this day, and I just felt so good about it. Like I wasn't stressed, I was just enjoying it all. And from that point on, I was like, oh my goodness. And then my stream was popping off as well. It was very hard to look at anything else for me at that point. I was just thoroughly enjoying life.
So you mentioned some experience with AoE prior to that when you were younger. Mm-hmm. That was AoE 2?
1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm old.
Fair enough. So, you know, why do you think that you've been able to perform at such a high level? Like, you know, what is it about your mindset or play style that allows you to, you know, compete at such a high level?
That's a real tough one. Like, even when I watch StarCraft 2 now, I'll watch Clem games, and sometimes I'll talk with Clem and be like, did you think about this? And he can be like, no, I didn't. Maybe. I've always felt that I've been good about figuring out things quite quickly. Not necessarily about the perfection part, because there's players that are ridiculously fast these days, right?
Yeah.
But I've been good about learning something quite quickly, and sometimes it could just be like different build, different flair on things. And when you have played so many RTS games in your life, like I've competed with some of the best from very different titles now, I just feel it's a bit ingrained in me at this point. Like people can ask like, oh, how did you come up with this build order? I'm like, I just kind of saw this line of how it could go, and it just kind of makes sense. And I think it was something that I was good at in StarCraft 2 as well, coming up with new builds and new things. And just also, if I saw a replay and I saw a build that I liked, it could be, I would just do it in a tournament for the first time and it just went very smooth, you know? So I think I had a good idea about how to keep things in mind, how to store. And I can talk about games from over a decade ago and be like, yeah, this game, this map, like I mentioned Nesty, like Shakura's Plateau, like, yeah, I went 2 racks, almost killed his hatch, 50 HP remaining, killed my bunkers. I was 33 supply against 69, still won. And then it's like I followed up against Oz afterwards, and I remember like, what was that map? I know what it looked like. It wasn't, I think Delta Quadrant maybe? Either way, it just sticks. So I find it fun to learn, and I think it's one thing that's very important about getting good at RTSs is enjoying it. Like the idea that you work for it and you push through the joy. Like, no, you gotta love what you do first. And I think that helps a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that's what I've heard from most people who end up being able to perform at a super high level in any game is that loving the game is what came first, and you don't dedicate yourself enough to a game to like get to that level unless you organically loved it. Mm-hmm. Why do you think there's not more crossover between like StarCraft players that have interest in AoE 4. There seems to be a lot of derision between the communities.
It's weird. Like, it is really weird because in my circle, I guess, or in, like when I stream, I have very much a crossover of games, like very much so. It feels like if I play StarCraft 2, I have a lot of the same bunch. If I play AoE 4, it'd be a lot of the same bunch. Then it could be like, say if I play Dota, there's less, but there's still some. But I think you get a lot of quote-unquote RDS fans that are StarCraft 2 fans that aren't necessarily RTS fans. They're StarCraft 2 fans.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of these people that think they're StarCraft 2 fans also think they're going to be Stormgate fans. And maybe they will be, but it's almost tribalistic, like this this loyalty that they don't know is there necessarily, and they might like it if they tried, because the same thing happened with Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 2. Like, you had players go back to Warcraft 3 that realized that, no, I don't like StarCraft 2, I like Warcraft 3 better, and it's like, okay, absolutely fair enough. I think people don't fully know what they might like, is what I would say. I do think it's very hazardous and harmful in general for these RTS games to be quabbling between themselves, because StarCraft 2 had that whole battle with Brood War for so long with the elitists and purists, and you had the same thing with AoE 4 with from the AoE 2 guys. Like, a lot of those AoE 2 pros were kind of bullied back into playing AoE 2, which was very unfortunate, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like people being very worried about new things when they're happy with what they have, or they think they're happy with what they have. Yeah, it's almost like people potentially can be scared of finding something that they like more. There's got to be some science behind it.
Harsdom said something like this to me in an interview I did with him recently about him being a big Warcraft 3 fan. So when he saw StarCraft 2 was announced, he instantly was like, I hate that game, I want it to fail. Until he played it, and he was like, oh man, this is actually a pretty good game, and obviously the rest is history. But yeah, it's a really weird mentality, and I think there are such parallels between, you know, other instances, like you said, like StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2, but now StarCraft 2 and Stormgate and Zero Space, and there seems to be this really negative zero-sum mindset that, you know, if one game succeeds, it's going to kill the other.
Yeah, I'll give you, I don't know why when people see something do well, they automatically assume that it means the other one will do badly. And it's also, you see it in people's general thoughts about commentators as well. We get this a lot where it's like, I like this commentator so much better than all the rest of them. They all suck. And it's like, you could be very nice without being a dick at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that's an internet change in general. Because like when StarCraft 2 first came out, you'd get praise at somebody without throwing somebody else under the bus. And I almost feel like people have forgot how to do that, or it's just like people are so feel that to make something stand out, you need to make something else look worse. And maybe it is the case, maybe it does make it stand out more, or you get more attention or whatever, but yeah, it's definitely toxic, and I miss the not pooping on stuff just because it's not the one thing you like. It's like pro gamers. Oh, I love Maru, all the other Terrans suck. And it's like, oh, no, you can love that guy without,
Yeah, no, none of it makes any sense.
No.
Internet culture is very strange. And it doesn't seem to, I feel like you don't run into this in real life nearly as much, with people. If they like something, they just praise it. And it's definitely not good, for sure. It's toxic. But, you know, this conversation sort of segues well into my next sort of question here. So what are you expecting from Stormgate? What do you think about the game right now?
I think it's got a long way to go, and I definitely think it's definitely been riding this wave of like, these are the StarCraft former devs and stuff, which is, I absolutely believe they can do a good job, and I really hope it does well, because you know they've been bigging up a big game, haven't they? Like we're going to be the next big RTS. Right now, when I look at it, it's still not as good as StarCraft 2, and I mean it's a beta, so it's not meant to be, right? But I do have this big worry that needs to come out swinging. Like it needs to come out swinging. There's this like Stormgate tournament going on right now, which I've not heard the best things about yet, which is definitely disappointing. But yeah, like when StarCraft 2 came out, the reason that so many people jumped on it was, it really was that, oh my God, this is the next RTS. Like, this is huge. And I mean, games are getting better and better as they come out. You could say that games are kind of being, a lot of games are being released too early, and like the consumers almost become the beta testers.
Yeah.
I just hope that Stormgate does it right. Because yeah, it absolutely has potential to take players from a lot of games. Yeah, I'm just hopeful. I'm hopeful.
How are you feeling about Zero Space?
Like, I played Zero Space, and it seemed fun as well. Like, it's exciting. I like, so Stormgate is mixed Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 2 a little bit, and Zero Space kind of mixed a bit of Dota and StarCraft in a way. Like, again, when I play them, I still very unfairly compare them to StarCraft 2, which I just think is, like, if people ask me what's the best RTS of all time, it's StarCraft 2, you know, like it really is. So yeah, if they are competing to take things from StarCraft 2 while also doing their own thing, for me, I'm still wanting more. I'm still wanting more overall, but I found Zero Space when I played it quite fun for what it was. And I mean, these games aren't complete yet, which is the big thing that people need to go easy on them about. They're not complete yet, but they absolutely have essence where you can see like how it will be fun.
Are there any particular innovations or mechanics that you hope to see in a new RTS?
Like, it's been very fun playing 3 very different RTS over the last 15 years, like Warcraft 3, StarCraft 2, Age of Empires, and there's things that I like about all of them. Like Warcraft 3, the upkeep system was very fun for managing your resources in an entirely different way. And I think back of that now, that opened up different game modes as well, like team games were fun, like different heroes getting colliding, and like the creeping system, very fun. Items. I know a lot of people like don't like heroes, and it's like, oh, why not? And you get to learn a different perspective. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed StarCraft 2 for its simplicity, in just, you've got 200 supply, you make an army, you expand, you slow down your opponent. And they all have fundamentally different mechanics. Like there's one thing in Age of Empires 4 that I like a lot that helps in a way with certain situations. So like in StarCraft 2, we've had periods of time where it's like, and it doesn't happen as much now, which is great for the game. Skytoss against Zerg for a long time during like the Jagannatha days, it was like, you're both 200 supply, how does one get ahead? Because neither one of you can attack. And it's like, that's Age of Empires 4, what that does nicely, in my opinion, you'll make way more production if you're ever in that kind of situation, and you'll make as many units as you can. It's one way that getting ahead really means you're ahead. And all your production, as long as you have it queued up, it's ready to pop as soon as you lose supply. So not in the StarCraft sense where you lose 30 supply, if your progress can warp in again instantly, but the other races they have to build. You just made way more production, so if you do hammer on, you technically have way more coming out. And that was, to me, like a nice mechanic in that really grants the guy that gets maxed out first and better economy like more of an advantage, rather than like the other person catching up and then it's like, okay, it's a bit of a stalemate. But like I said, StarCraft 2 has done a good job of removing that kind of stuff quite hard. But yeah, just I think they all have things you can look at and be like, oh, that's actually quite nice.
What do you think a next-gen RTS can do to perhaps capture some fans from outside the genre?
I think it has to be beautiful. There's been games released that I was like, I'll use Heroes of the Storm as an example, because I remember being in America at the time when, oh, have you heard about this new game that's getting made? And it's like, oh, it's going to be a MOBA. And I was already like into Dota 2. Played a little bit of League, but I enjoyed Dota 2 more. And then I heard like, oh, it's going to be taking things from like the Blizzard universe. And I was like, oh, that would be awesome. Then I found out it was all like cartoony looking, and I was so disappointed, because to me, like Blizzard at that time, like their universe was Diablo 2, like StarCraft, like
Gritty.
Yeah, gritty and real. And when they made it all freaking bubble pop, and I was just like so let down. It felt like that missed the mark for me entirely. Like, but if there's something that would attract people from other genres, I think it's that social aspect, and I think Blizzard absolutely missed the mark with BNet 2.0. To me, that was a massive downgrade. Like Warcraft 3 was, and Brew War as well. Like those chat channels that you join, and that was such a big deal, and just like the simplicity of it as well. I know they tried to replicate something like that with BNet, but it's a lonely place. I think a lot of it isn't necessarily about the game itself, it's about the surroundings of the game. And yeah, that's definitely something that absolutely needs to be checked out, because without those channels, I would have never got here in the first place. I would have never made the online friends that I had. When I played StarCraft 2, it was, I was streaming to lots of people, and that was my connection, but when I'm there, I'm alone, and that's just not a place you want to be.
You don't like to hang out in StarCraft 2 general chat?
No, no, I definitely like, so I'm not going to praise the Warcraft 3 stuff for everything, but it was very cool that I could go to a channel, and back then it was like D-Sky. You'd join your GBR/1, and then you'd be like, join D-Sky or Four Kings, and the channel, you'd see the like mods of the channel at the top. You'd all have like a pretty icon and a level next to your name, and it was just epic. And I could check people's profiles and just what they played and stuff, and it was just like, oh my god, this is freaking awesome. Like to this day, Warcraft 3, like the BNet thing, was so much cooler than BNet 2.0. It really was. It's I'm still to this day very confused with how much of a downgrade SE2's interface was. But yeah, it definitely needs to be looked at specifically. But as for the game genre itself, it is a niche. It's so easy. Like you get CS:GO, CS2 now. It's so easy for a newcomer to look, see what's happening, and just to know, like, that guy killed that guy. Yeah. And it's like, you see some guy do some flick, very quick shot, and it's like, you know when it's impressive. It's like listening to, let's say you listen to a singer. You can be as classically trained as you want in this, like 10 years, and you can listen and be like, oh, that's great because they're doing this. Like the experts know what's good, but the layman who's got the voice of an absolute dog, I can listen to that and just be like, that's beautiful. Like that. So it's very important for RTS to get that across. So A, simplicity to know what's happening. B, the experts know what's very impressive. And C, it just being an overall great viewing experience, like and fun, obviously. So yeah, it's hard to do with RTS. And I think StarCraft 2, as it got more complicated, definitely made it a bit more tricky with like the extra units and stuff. But yeah, initially, I think that's what made a lot of sense with StarCraft 2 and why it was such a success, because you could look at it, kind of get a grasp of what's happening, and it would just be like, yeah, that's great, that's fun. And obviously, that guy's really good at that.
Yeah. Well, that's about what I had prepared for you. Do you have any closing words?
I'm a bit surprised you didn't ask about the pork chop.
Oh, the interesting.
I'm a little surprised you didn't ask about the pork chop.
We can hear about the pork chop.
To this day, I still have no idea what happened to the pork chop, and like living in the house was amazing for so many reasons. Like Huck, yeah, a cheeky sod. Like he definitely got treated like the golden boy in EG. He signed on a later contract, and it was an amazing contract. And he would come and stay in EG. And one thing that I don't think people know, like when he used to stay in EG, like he was under contract to have like a 2 PC stream set up so he could play and stream when he came. And they didn't have the PCs available, like not even one, but not two. So like me and Jeff had to give up our PC parts to.
Oh, like make it up.
Yeah, so like when Huck came, we couldn't play.
Oh my god.
So it was like, it creates this animosity, like. And little Chris, like he had no idea that he was putting us in this position, but we weren't happy, you know. It was like, anyway, so Hook stayed a few times, so we'd have to give up our parts, and it's like, okay, we don't play for a while, I guess. But then he wouldn't stream either, and he would just play League, and it's like, even more. Yeah, and then we told him, and it's like, oh, I had no idea. But that's on them, and it's like, yeah, it is on them. Anyway, when Hook stayed, things would go missing every time. There was a guy called Azael, who's now a big Riot caster for League of Legends. Very nice guy. Like, Hook just left one time with his keyboard and mouse. And it was like, yeah, we were sponsored, and it's like, he thought he could, I don't know why, and he was like, what the shit, like, took my... So when Hook was staying next time, IdrA used to loved cooking. He'd cook with Bryce, and cooked pork chops. And I remember being sat in the gamer room. It was like me, IdrA next to me, Hook further down the hall, and IdrA, like one late evening, let's say like 10 o'clock or something, walked into the kitchen, came back in, just looked at Hook like the back of the head for a while, just standing still, and Hook like turns around, he's like, hey, and then he like turns around again, he's like, hey, sup? And IdrA's basically like, you took my fucking pork chop, and it's like, what? No? And to be fair to Chris, he mainly just ordered food, like, so I don't think he even knew where the fridge was, but, you know, things went missing when Chris was there. We all had this. And then anyway, like, Chris goes to sit down, or rather, IdrA comes to sit down, and then I get a message from my manager at the time, like Cody, and he's like, Ben, what's happening? I'm like, what do you mean? I thought it was all done. And he's like, I got Hook and IdrA telling me they're both going to beat each other up. Like, so I look over and I sit at their PCs, and they're both like typing frantically, and they're apparently messaging Cody they're going to beat the other one up. and like, it was a real like sore spot in the house. Like, I can't remember what happened, but like IdrA kind of refused to talk to Hook, and Hook refused to talk to IdrA. It was very weird, and we still have no idea. And I actually think the real culprit for who ate the pork chop was Bryce Machine. I think he just totally freaking forgot about this bloody pork chop being IdrA's, and yeah, I'm absolutely going to pin it on him.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a mystery, kind of long-running mystery that we can try to solve now.
Yeah, and like, he was so dizzy at the time. Like, he was like, he had no idea what was happening to him. A lot of the time, it was just like this nice Care Bear. He'd wake up and he'd be like, hey, you want to play soccer? He's like, yeah, sure. And he was so nice that, you know, nobody ever pointed the finger. Like, could have been Jeff, to be honest, but I think it was most likely Bryce.
Yeah, it's funny because like their personalities are so well reflected in their play style as well, that just mere like exact opposites in, you know, their approach to the game, and I think that probably says a lot about their approach to life and the way they think about things as well. So it makes sense that they might have a little bit of friction. Yeah, but yeah, anything else you want to touch upon?
I'll say a massive thank you to Team Liquid just for being a massive part of the scene, and it's my team right now. Playing Age of Empires 4 and just being in StarCraft as well, RTS in general. Yeah. Massive thank you to the fans. I get a bit of shtick for, like, why'd you leave? You know, I talk about the toxic part. Like, StarCraft 2 has been something that's in my life for 14 years now, and I've always been a little confused as to, some people have left and they've left really badly, like Husky, for example. Some people they've longed for to stay or come back. Like, Day9's obviously a massive name, and he did a lot for StarCraft 2 at the start. Yeah. I know he took time away for sure because he really disliked Bobby, which I totally understand. But there's been people that have stayed for a long time. I never truly realize or understand. Like, I love StarCraft, and I love talking about it, and still very much friends with everybody in it, and play. I have no idea why they want to push me away a little bit sometimes. It's not a majority at all, but there's definitely some people that can be this battle of like, no, you play this, like, screw you. Like, I think all the casters have games that they play on the side, you know, like, be it F1, Kevin, way too much casino for Kevin as well. But yeah, Zombie Grub with their RPG games and stuff, like, yeah, all of them. If I was bad at AoE 4, but I played it and streamed it, I don't think anybody would bat an eye. Like, I really don't. It's like, you know, Artosis plays Brutal War, he's bad at it. Nobody bats an eye. Same with Tasteless. But, yeah, kind of ridiculous. So, I don't know. Like, yeah, no idea. But thank you, everybody, that's been very nice and supportive and given constructive feedback and all that. And, yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be a part of the StarCraft 2 scene. And for me, I love RTS. I love all RTS. I love games in general. And yeah, I guess I can just leave it with that. Like, my joy is many.
Yeah, no, I think we're all still obviously very happy to have you in the community. For people like myself, really old school viewers, there's something really nice about these faces that have been around forever. And of course, newer people are great too, but
yeah, definitely. I always find it funny where it's like, who's that guy? And then people are like, oh, he's just an AoE 4 guy. And it's like, oh, when did you start following StarCraft 2? And it'd be like, 2020, 2021. It's like, okay, you know, like, all right. People very much like saying things when they don't necessarily, like, going up to a rocket scientist and being like, yeah, I've thought about it a lot, and it definitely irks me a little bit when people have no idea of like that StarCraft 2 has a massive history, you know, massive history, and I really did get to battle against some of the greats, you know, like the absolute greats for the longest time, like to the point where I got to battle from the first great to the last great, which not many people can say actually. And you know, I've taken maps off Serral in my career. That's not something many people can say. Taking maps off like the Rainers of the world. I even remember taking a map off Marrow as well. So yeah, it's such a long history, and like, yeah, I love it.
That's the thing. So like the history is getting so long at this point that like people like you, people like me who have been in, well, obviously you were much more involved, but people who have been in the scene for a long time, you know, we have a different perspective. I think because StarCraft 2 was so much larger in like 2011, 2012, we have the perception that like most people that are still around, or the hardcores that stuck around from that time period, and obviously a pretty significant subset of the community is that, but when you go to events and you talk to people and you interact with fans, you start to realize that actually it seems like, at least in my experience, and this is rather anecdotal, but like almost half the people you talk to got into the game like 2016 or later, like we went free to play in 2017. And so I meet a lot of people that have gotten into the game within the last 5 years, and some people even within the last 2 years, which I think really goes against the narrative and the perception that people have of the game. And as a result, there are some really weird interactions for somebody like me, like what you just described, where somebody's like, who the hell is this Age of Empires guy?
Well, it can be like, who's this new girl, Rachel Seltzer? And it's like, she was pretty OG. And then you can show them a picture of her with Stefan, and they're like, who?
Yeah.
Like, what game is that? It's like, StarCraft, mate. And it's like, all right. A lot of the people that I actually meet at events, I've not actually had one negative interaction. I had one guy that asked me to sign and draw an elephant as well, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
But I've not had any bad stuff. Like StarCraft Reddit, especially when we talk about either newcomers or definitely far more toxic than it used to be. Like far more. I remember that being like after a series, you'd get like a thread for like 200 comments, like, "Oh man, DeMu played amazing against Protoss today," and it was like, "Frickin' hey, that was lovely." You don't really get that too much anymore.
Not a lot.
It can be very focused on the bad, even when there is so much good to talk about. So that's confusing. But I think a lot of my interactions are a bit opposite to that. Like there can be newcomers for sure, but I get a lot of people that be like, "Hey man, you were a killer human back in the day." So that was like, 15 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just fun. It's an enigma in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I met some fans in Katowice last year that didn't know who MC was. And things like that break your brain a little. I think, like there is almost a positive element of that like, we have these newcomers. And of course, I wish that they had a bit more of an appreciation for some of the history. But that being said, obviously it's nice to have people that are just discovered the game recently.
Yeah, you understand. Like if people are new, they're new. If like not everybody's got the time or the interest to look things up from the past, and rightly so, everybody's their own person. Like, for me, I'm a bit different. Like, when I played Warcraft 3 a lot, I used to follow, like, so much Brood War, but, like, old Brood War. I'd check out all the VODs and stuff, and I'd go through the OSL history list, and I'd go back to, like, Grr winning, and then it'd be like, oh my goodness, this guy Reach, he looks really cool. And I'd go and look up all the Terrans, and I mean, a lot of this made sense to me at the time because it was like 2005. I went to a WCG, followed the Warcraft 3, then I discovered Brood War, and it's like, shit, this guy called Zelos wins, and it was a Russian dude called Android coming second, who was apparently a proper shit kid. But like, yeah, it was just fun to get involved in, and just it's what you find interesting, right? Like, people have their passions.
Yeah.
Mine's just esports.
Day9 described androids as having funky manner.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there was funny stories about him, and I remember like one of the quirks about his play. He was so damn good, and he'd also be one of these guys that would be like, "I don't try online," like, and he'd say like, I put in 5%. Then at LAN, he came second at WCG.
Yeah.
And he also had this weird quirk about his play where it's like he'd always put his command center like 1 pixel away from like a mineral line where it should be, and it was like it's just very irrelevant facts that I remember from so long ago, but yeah, just funny.
I think we're cut from the same cloth, Ben. But okay, we've done the wrap up a couple times, so I think we could finally, call it here. I really appreciate your time. It was a fantastic conversation.
Thank you so much, and It's a pleasure. I think I've got to get off to cast right now.
Yeah,
so thank you for this.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, be sure to leave a like and a comment down below. Get subscribed so you don't miss out on future releases with other awesome guests. If you really enjoy what I do here, consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the video description. That's all for now, my friends. Until next time.